What would you say is the most memorable interview that you've done?
Ever in my whole life?
Yeah.
Damn, it's hard to choose, but probably the Vegas Tunnels series or the Vegas Tunnels video, the hour-and-a-half long one, was probably the most impactful in recent memory.
What made it so impactful?
Just the amount of time that I spent down there, getting to know those people, trying to help them find IDs, what I learned about the recovery industry, and all that in general throughout the process.
Yeah. It seems like that's almost like I don't want to say a trendy thing.
Yeah,
but
no,
I see quite a few people now going down to the Vegas tunnels, and
Yeah.
it seems to be like people will use that as a way to like boost content or
Yeah.
boost viewership.
There's
How do
definitely
you-
a dark side of YouTube that's all about like homeless journalism. Sometimes at its worst, it's clickbait, being like, holy f- look at these people, they live in squalor, that's so horrible. Well,
Yeah.
why'd the Democrats do this? Then the other end is like, I'm gonna humanize this poor, amazing person. You know what I'm saying? So there's
Yeah.
a broad spectrum of empathy versus ridicule, all under the clickbait umbrella. I tried to like at least insert myself into that situation and actually help them get IDs and figure out like what tangible steps I could take to make a real impact. Ultimately, I'm not sure if it actually did help. I'm not gonna, stand like I'm the most righteous YouTube documentary filmmaker in history. I don't know if Glenn, who I filmed, is still in the tunnels or not, but I'm hoping he, linked back up with his sister and got out of there.
Yeah. Could you, for people who haven't seen that, could you explain who that is?
Glenn lives in the tunnels.
How did he get in the tunnels?
Oh, actually, we don't know. I don't know. He was a bouncer on Fremont Street, You know where the
I
corner
do.
where you have hogs and heifers and you have the golden nugget
Yeah.
surrounded by that giant screen
Yeah.
on top where there's people in the circles doing busking. He used to be a doorman right there. And then he started smoking and then ended up underground.
So why do people live in the tunnels? Like, what is the allure of these tunnels?
Well, for one, it's about 10 degrees cooler than the surface of Las Vegas. It's obviously a hot Mojave Desert city. And secondly, Las Vegas Metro just relentlessly harasses homeless people with vagrancy citations. So it's a place to avoid being given a ticket, taken to jail, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And would you say it's an overall like better or worse place to live on average for a homeless person in the tunnels or like maybe on the streets of LA?
Oh, definitely better because there's a community. Different tunnels have like tunnel leaders, like it's Fallout New Vegas, and they basically control what goes in and out.
So for the tunnels, can anybody go and join? Like if they're,
Well, I mean,
but like if
I don't
I'm
think
thinking, like,
anyone's like, yo, yes. I mean, if you're
homeless,
if you're homeless, there's also different tunnels with different levels of like regulation. For example, if you go to some of the tunnels that are further up North Town, past old Vegas, like by the Missions, those tunnels are pretty unregulated, right? You can do, but the tunnels where everyone films the YouTube videos are South Strip in between the Rio and Caesar's Palace. Under there, they don't even like do. It's just like meth, weed, that kind of stuff.
And the big thing with that, my understanding is from seeing some of these videos, is that it's hard to get an ID without an address. And if they're homeless, they need an ID, but they need an address to get the ID.
Yes.
So they're stuck.
It's a vicious cycle for sure.
What do you think the solution is to that?
Well, I mean, if you're homeless, you can get someone to let you put their address on the ID, which worked for Glenn. So Glenn's address is actually my cameraman Larry Susan's house in Vegas. So he's constantly getting citations under Glenn's name.
Oh, wow.
That's one solution. A lot of the times different nonprofits and foundations will let you use their company address as your home address. Like Help of Southern Nevada lets people in the tunnels put that as their home address. So sometimes it's offered.
Why wouldn't they just lie and just put an address on there and then
Check the mail?
I think that you have to show an address and like 2 pieces of mail. You guys know how hard it is to get your ID at the DMV? Like I have gone and I have a house. I've gone like 5 times in a row.
It's like you got to show like a utility or like a bank statement or like something with it on there.
It's like stealing the Declaration of Independence. That's how it feels. You know what I mean? It's so complex.
And what percentage of the people living in these tunnels would you say are happy that they're living in the tunnels versus like, no, I want to get out of here. I'm motivated to make a change for my life.
I would say
I could exist here forever.
100% of them are base level unhappy, at least like unfulfilled. But the amount of people that are willing to put in the effort and like, step up from that state of humiliation is a pretty low metric. Like you got to think like with our generation, there's kind of a romanticization to a certain extent of homelessness, like van life, living outside to a certain extent.
Yeah.
With that generation, people in their mid 50s and stuff who grew up during Reagan with like the toxic positivity and like pick up by your bootstraps mentality, for them being homeless is the ultimate humiliation. Like they are failures. The average age of a homeless man in America is 54 years old. You know what I mean? So that's the age where you're expected to have 2 or 3 kids, have a Leave It to Beaver style picket fence existence. So they're coming from a whole different level of shame that our generation isn't really adjusted to.